Alright, totally epic, awesome YouTuber back again with another Roblox Let's Code video. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about hash maps. Now, hash maps, unlike arrays, use key value pairs. What I mean by that is we actually have a specific key that is going to be equal to a specific value. Whereas, if we remember, arrays actually have numerical indexes, so they're numerical. So we'd have 1 equal to a value, right? Now, internally, dictionaries is what they're called, but internally a hash map uses an array to keep track of all the information that is stored. But the way that it works is it actually references a hash. Now this hash is essentially it has a we have a inside of our hash map we have a function which creates a hash of the key, and this hashed key is then indexed in an array. So that sounds complicated, but it's not that hard. Let me do an example. We have a key. We're going to set this equal to 2. Let's say we have an array here. So let's say we have our hashing function, which our function here, we call it foo. It takes a string and returns a number. We end it. We have to end the phrase. So then we say we're going to return the string length. So in Python, it's len s, followed by the modulation of however big the statically sized array is. In this case, we're going to say it's size 10. So if the length of the string is 1, we're going to go ahead and say that the string is going to be 1. So that it will occupy the first index in our array. Now if the string length was 2, if we added another key to this, for instance, if we said, we can add a period here, or we can just do this in Lua. It's different in Python. We'll say, let's pretend that we have this key is going to be equal to, I don't know, 5, right? Well, this key, what is this key? This key is going to be equivalent to, this has 4 letters, 4 modulated by 10 is 4. So it occupy, this will be nil, nil, and then 5. And that's essentially how our hash function works. It converts our string into a modulated, it converts our string length and modulates it by the length of the array and returns the number that it's given. Now, we don't actually have to worry about this in Lua and Python, because Python and Lua dynamically allocate memory for arrays. Well, Lua specifically. Python, you have to be a little more worrisome because you can't index an array index that doesn't exist. If you have 0 items in the array and you attempt to index the array index of like 55, for example, it will error telling you that it's out of the range of that array. But in Lua, it doesn't matter. You can do that. So we don't really need to worry about that, but we're going to actually implement a custom hash map later in this video. Now, what if we had another key? Let's say we had help. That's 4 letters, right? Help is equal to 6. Well, if help is equal to 6, we would have this. We would have a conflict. We would actually have an indexing conflict in our array, right? So there's multiple things we can do. The simplest is to actually go ahead and create another array. So we convert this 5, right, into another array. So we'd have 5 and 6. So now when we want to actually reference this or find the value, what we do is we iterate through the array here and return the value. That's one way to deal with conflicts like that, numerical-based conflicts. Now, what's another way to do it? You can actually just use a hashing algorithm. For instance, let me pull up Chrome. There's a lot of hashing algorithms that exist. For instance, we could use this hexadecimal hashing algorithm. We could also use hashing numerical based. Let's look up numerical based. So I don't want a hexadecimal. There's this is hashing is used a lot in cryptography because you can generate a key that is extremely long and complex, and it will take a very long time for computers to essentially crack the code to figure out what it is, and that's why it's used in security. It's actually really it's a pretty cool concept if you're into cryptography. I went to a seminar regarding cryptography given by the FBI director, and it was pretty. It's not a field I would go into, but it was definitely eye-opening because I didn't realize how complex computer systems were, and how much thought goes into simply generating a key for both internet communication, internet traffic, as well as for government agencies to keep secrets. And I didn't realize how many people there were trying to hack and steal that information, especially from other countries. But the hashing algorithms here is just an algorithm that maps data based on a hash of a fixed size, right? This is our statically typed array. So yeah, that's exactly what we showed here, right? Our fixed size is 10. But let's actually implement a hash map. So there's two ways we can do that. We can actually do this. We go to our script, we do is this key equals 2, value or other key equals 5. This right here would be our hash map. We have a key and a value. We can print out these keys by going print hashmap.key and hashmap.value, or hashmap.otherValue or key. And if you run this, it'd print out 2 and 5. Now we're gonna implement our own custom hash map. To do that, we're essentially going to actually define this, and we're going to use a meta table. So we're going to use hashmap is equal to an array. We're going to essentially index the hash map using the index meta method. I do explain how this works if you're interested. I have a whole series on meta tables and object-oriented programming and paradigms. That's the correct term. Sorry about that. Pedagogy is when I studied music theory and composition. But paradigms are there's multiple programming paradigms, but object-oriented programming right now in the industry is the most used. Any big tech company will want you to use object-oriented programming when you code for them. I can tell you that from personal experience at Amazon, but just be aware that it exists. And we're using objects here, so we're going to return a meta table. And essentially what we're going to do in this meta table is we're going to keep our array, which we'll reference constantly. So then we're going to have a hash function, which will essentially hash our value, right? So what we can do here is say hash, and we're going to pass our key. And this key is essentially going to have, I'm thinking, give me a second. We're going to return string.length, and we're going to do our string modulated by the, we'll just do 100 for the base size of the array. Even though it's dynamically sized, we are going to modulate it by 100. Then we need a function to actually insert or append to the hash map. So to do that, we're going to get past a key and a value. We're going to get the hash, which is going to be self hash, and that takes the argument key. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to have to do some logic. We're going to say if self array hash, then what we have to do is we know we have to take the value. So we're going to say old value is equal to the self.array at the hash. And we're going to essentially just set that value here, this value here, equal to an array. We're going to do table.insert the array here, the old value, and then we're going to table.insert the array and then our value. So now we have an array. Otherwise, what we're going to do is simply just set this hash value equal to our value, and now we have a dictionary based on our array. Then we're going to check our hash map here. We're going to say hash get. This will return a value. So we're going to say what's the key that we're asking for. Then of course we get our hash, self hash, and then we give our key. Let me say return hash map, or in this case we say self.array hash. Then we're going to have our what's another method we need? We need our contains, and we're going to say value. So we're going to actually iterate through the array. So for index value in our array, do array is nil because we haven't referenced it, self.array. And we're going to say if the value is equal to, we can't do that. If v is equal to value, then we're just going to return the index in which it's at and the value. Nah, we're not. We're just going to return the index that's at. And that's a hash map. So let's test it. Now we can add some custom functionality if we want to use meta tables. For instance, we can do this. We can set this equal to a function, takes the index, the value, and then the, let's look at that real quick. So there's a bunch of meta methods on Roblox for meta tables here in this documentation. So it takes self, the index, and the value at which we're indexing. So we're going to say self here, the value, the index, and the value, followed by the value. What we can do here is essentially just, this is fired whenever we set something equal to something. We can take advantage of this and essentially do self.array. The index is going to equal the value. And what we can do is simply say, okay, well, if this might actually have a C-stack overflow because of a recursive call, so we're going to check. We're just going to say if that already exists, we're going to return and not do anything. Okay, that should work. So we're going to create a hash map. We're going to do map equals map value, or we're going to say this equals 2. Let's see what happens. So we're going to print out map. Okay, so let's try to say map key. Let's see what happens. It should be nil. Yes, it is. It's nil because it doesn't exist. It only exists in our array. Now if we say, we didn't actually hash this yet, so be aware. But if we do map.array key, the value is 2. So now what we can do in this case is go ahead and now again we did this to avoid a C-stack overflow. because it will recursively call forever. We always, if we worry about recursion, we have to have a return statement to break the loop, the recursive loop. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to call our hash function. So we're going to do local hash equals self hash followed by our index. Then we're going to set our hash. We're going to call our append function, our append method, self append hash followed by our, actually we can just do index value in this case because we don't have to worry about the hash because it'll do it for us. So now whenever we index, we can also set this equal to a function. We can say map index is equal to a function. I wouldn't suggest doing this in a real use, but we're going to do this for the sake of theory. We're going to say if the index doesn't exist, so if if the index exists in our table, like it's a method, then we're going to return the index. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to get that key. So we're going to return self get the index. Okay, so let's see what this function method's doing here. Are we gonna have a nil value? Yeah. Length expected of string got nil. Yeah, because we didn't give it a key. We can pass through test. Okay. So let's pass through key. Key is 2. Perfect. So the key exists in the array. Now we actually have to set up the value. To do that, what we're going to do is go back to this because apparently it doesn't want to work correctly. And I want to print the index to see if this method is even being called. No, it's nil. Okay. Oops. So it's not. Interesting. Fires when a table index is indexed. Yeah, so it should. That's quite interesting, actually. I don't know why it's not indexing, because I am indexing the array here, but I mean, I'm indexing the HashMap object, but it's not recognizing that I'm indexing it. Did I set it up correctly? It takes the arguments that are taken are the table. Okay. That's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. So map get, let's call like that. Oh, maybe it's because I'm doing this. Let's print the index. It is working, I'm just not paying attention. That's why we can't have nice things. So map.array.key. Okay, so we called, we appended to the array the value of 2, but it's not recognizing the fact that we called the method because for some reason it's not considering this an index to the table, which is fine. We can just use our getter. Like we can do map.key if we wanted to. There it is. We got it. Okay, so this key method here, it works now, by the way. Oh, shoot. I had a little brain, whatever. Okay, we don't talk about that. So now we have a full-fledged hash map internally working in Lua. Let's work through how it works. We essentially have our hash map object here, which we call the constructor. We don't actually ever reference the array. That is a private, that's private to the object. Okay. We can't, if we index this array, it's going to be, it's not, we can actually make this private by doing this. We can set this to a metatable. We can actually make this locally defined to the constructor. And now we have a private getter. I mean, we have a private variable that's privately defined to the stack of this function. Return self here. And now what we can do is copy all of these methods here and put them inside of the constructor, which will allow us to basically not have to worry about the fact that the array we won't have to worry about unwanted access of the array, if that makes any sense. This is also going to, we have to define it using Lua U, we'll say numbers. It's going to be an array full of numbers. That way we fix that. We have to remove self in front also because it's no longer a part of the object. So it's no longer publicly defined to the object. And hash is actually a numerical function. So this any cannot be converted to. Okay, well, I don't know what to say because that's how that works. Let's self hash, self.array, remove that. Self.array, we have array now. And let's run it again. Yeah, look at that, see Stack Overflow. So we're indexing self in this case. And that's what I was talking about. We can't, I don't think it's possible to return without. We can't do it like that. Because you can't break out of a recursive call, especially if we're indexing the object. So it has to stay like this. But it works as a hash map. You'll just have to worry about public and private. You have to worry about public and private access of the map because we can go .array and get the value inside of there if we really wanted to. Like we can go array 3 and get 2 if we wanted to. Of course, they won't know what the index is because it's a map, and we'll do array key to get it. But the problem still exists. That's because Lua doesn't have true private methods and fields to objects. But it works. I mean, it's a hash map by definition. We implemented all the necessary functions, methods, and fields to make it a hash map. And we took advantage of all the hash map, the meta method and new index, and as well as index. So, yeah. See ya.